Krishna Krishna Hare Haribol. Anybody home? Anybody? Sheila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Prabhupada. Haribol. If the speaker's too loud, Haribol. Ranjasura Prabhu, Hemalata Devi Dasi, Hare Krishna to everyone. So where are we? We're in chapter 12. Verse 20. Verse 20. Okay, let's see. So devotees, welcome to our 48th session, 48th session on, wow, Bhakti Vaibhava seminar, Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, it's great. Okay. First of all, though, our prayers. Oops, oh dear. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschyachadesh Tarne Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda. I can't see. No. I can't see what it looks like. Yeah? Okay. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripas sindhubhya evacha. Patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So devotees, we are in the 12th chapter, birth of Maharaj Parikshit, and the Brahmins are giving their predictions, you could say, because they can actually see the future. So they're giving their insights into what sort of person Maharaj Parikshit is going to be like and what he's going to do. And they even, I think we already, or maybe not yet, they explain how he is going to die. You know, if that's not good enough insight, don't ask me what is. Yeah, so we're in this one section where these predictions and whatever statements are being made by the Brahmins on the request of Maharaj Yudhisthira. And we are, the section goes on to verse 31, but we are at verse 20 right now. So let us continue. Translation, chapter 12, verse 20. This child will be a munificent donor of charity and protector of the surrendered, like the famous King Shibi of the Ushinara country, and he will expand the name and fame of his family like Bharat, the son of Maharaj Dushyanta. Right, so that's the translation of verse 20, and there's fairly substantial purport here. 3 paragraphs long, that's pretty substantial purport. So let's have a look at the purport. So, first of all, Srila Prabhupada gives a description of the Vedic kings. First of all, it's just a king. A king becomes famous by his acts of charity, performances of yajna, protection of the surrendered, etc. And then Prabhupada makes a really interesting point. A Kshatriya king is proud to give protection to the surrendered souls. It's proud to. It's not a burden to take care of someone who you don't know and you've never seen before. Suddenly they appear on your doorstep. Help! You got to protect me, please. So they're proud to give protection. And Srila Prabhupada makes an interesting point, next sentence. This attitude of a king is called Ishvara Bhava, or the factual power to give protection in a righteous cause. Yeah. It's like the bhava meaning mood, you can say mood, definitely. Ishvara, like the Lord. Yeah, like the Lord. So, then Srila Prabhupada explains how the Lord gives protection. And he says that in Bhagavad Gita. And the king, representing the Lord, must also give, must have this attitude, this bhava, this mood of giving protection to the devotees, particularly, at least protection to whoever comes and just places themselves just at their feet. And as mentioned in the verse itself about King Shibi, Srila Prabhupada then goes into a fairly substantial description of the story of King Shibi. And he, actually, it doesn't, does he really tell the actual, okay. The rest of the paragraph is is all describing Maharaj Shibi. First of all, his extraordinary state of mind. He was to go to a particular heavenly planet. He was an associate of Maharaj Yayati, who's described in the Bhagavatam later on as a 9th canto, I think. So, and Shibi was to go to the heavenly planets because he had so much pious credits, but he wanted to give that to Yayati. But Yayati wouldn't accept. So anyway, Yayati went to heaven and explained there about what a person Shibi is. And Shibi then became an associate of Yamaraj. So anyway, while he was present though, here, there's this famous story. It is a famous story, which Sheila Prabhupada tells and is told here and there, that Indra took the form of an eagle, and Agni took the form of a pigeon, and they acted like the eagle was chasing the pigeon and wanted to eat the pigeon. And the pigeon came to Maharaj Shibi and said, "This is my problem. Can you please give me protection?" And Shibi said, "Yes, of course, because even the birds are prajas. They're citizens. They're dependents of the king." So Shibi said, "Yes." And so the eagle came, "Where's that pigeon? I want to eat the pigeon." And Maharaj Shibi said, "No, you can't. He's under my protection, so go away." And the eagle said, "Well, listen, I'm also under your protection. I'm also one of the prajas, and I have to eat too. And I eat pigeons. And this is the one I've chosen, so you must give him back." But so Shibi was caught in a dilemma, and he started cutting flesh. He had a balancing scale. So he put the pigeon on one side, and then he started cutting his own flesh and putting it on the other side. But he had more or less no flesh left, but it wasn't balanced yet. So he just sat on the scale, then it balanced. And then they revealed themselves as Indra and Agni. You passed the test. That's a bit of a test, isn't it? Gosh. Anyway, that's the story. It's a very famous story. Yeah. So, and even Prabhupada says here at the end of the first paragraph that Narada Muni glorifies Shibi sometimes. He is such an outstanding person. And Prabhupada says here, Maharaj Shibi sacrificed his own son for the satisfaction of human beings in his kingdom. I don't know what that means exactly, but yeah. So anyway, the point is that, because we're talking about Maharaj Parikshit, so Parikshit, the child Parikshit, is going to become a second Shibi. Such a noble and selfless personality, and kind, helpful. So then, what the next, I think both paragraph 2, paragraph 3, they're describing Doshyanti Bharata. In Hindi they'd say Bharat, In Sanskrit, it's Bharata. So anyway, are the Sanskrit classes still going on? Something. All right, anyway. So Prabhupada makes the point, there are many Bharats in history. There's Bharat, the son of Lord Ram, of course. Bharat, the son of King Rishabha. And that Bharat, the son of Rishabha, anyway, he was the one with the deer, right? That Bharat, yeah. He was the one with the deer. Hare Krishna. He became attached to a deer and became a deer. And then there's Dushyanta Bharat. Because this Maharaj Dushyanta and his son Bharat, they're also mentioned in the verse, along with Shibi. And some say that Bharat, the son of Rishabha, the one connected with the deer, is the one who this planet is named after. But some say, and maybe more actually, but anyway, definitely some say that it was the son of this Dushyanta, Maharaj Dushyanta, that this planet was named Bharatvarsha. Yeah. But Prabhupada says, as far as we're convinced, this land's name Bharatvarsha was established from the reign of Bharat, the son of King Rishabha. And before that, this planet was known as Ilavrita Varsha. Okay, so anyway, despite that, as Prabhupada says, despite all this Bharat, the son of Dushyanta, was no less important. He is also very, very significant personality. And he was the son of Shakuntala. You heard of Shakuntala? Was the son of Vishvamitra, right? Vishvamitra. Yes, Vishvamitra. And Menaka was Shakuntala. So Dushyanta fell in love with Shakuntala and Bharat was conceived. After that, Dushyanta was cursed by Kanva and forgot all about his wife, Shakuntala. And so Bharat was brought up by Shakuntala in the forest. And he was so powerful, he would fight with lions and elephants, just like little children play with cats and dogs. And he was, Prabhupada says, more powerful than Tarzan. Oh, that's good. Okay. So therefore the rishis in the forest called him, Prabhupada, he comes up with things like this from time to time, just funny little twists on things. It's really amazing. So the rishis called him Sarvadamana. Damana means to defeat. Krishna, to overcome. Krishna is Kaliya Damana. It's the Kaliya Damana Leela, the Leela of the overcoming, the defeating of Kaliya. So Dushyanta, Bharat, the son of Dushyanta, was known as Sarvadamana, he who just could defeat everyone. Yeah. And he's described in detail in Mahabharata. Okay. Right. And Prabhupada makes the point, it's an interesting little point, Pandavas are sometimes addressed as Bharat, or the son. You see Arjuna addressed as scion of Bharata. Scion means descendant. Well, scion means like very special, like even royal descendant, like that. All right, so then we go on to verse 21. Amongst great bowmen, this child will be as good as the Arjunas. He'll be as irresistible as fire and as unsurpassable as the ocean. So, purport, there are two Arjunas. One is Arjuna, of course, the Pandava, and the other is Kartavirya Arjuna, the king of Haihaya. Yeah, so he's another Arjuna. And they were both expert with bows, and Parikshit's going to be equal to both of them. And then here, next paragraph is a biography of Arjuna, the Pandava. I don't think we really, with all due respect, I don't think we really need to go through it because, oh, look at this. It's a major biography. Gosh, it's really major. But I think, it's not something you're going to be tested on, at least. I would just be too surprised if you were, except there's one thing. Oh, there's an analogy. Where is the analogy? Maybe it's in the next verse, next purport. Let's just, I think it must be in the next verse. Anyway, we'll see shortly if it is or not. Right, so, well, it's quite a substantial biography of, what's going on? Pretty substantial biography. Oh, it's really, it's a really substantial biography of Arjuna. And, gosh. Anyway, you can read it in your own time. It's interesting from the biographical point of view. It is. All sorts of interesting information about Arjuna. Oh, and the analogy is actually in the next verse, so it's okay. So, where are we now? Verse 22. This child will be as strong as a lion and as worthy as shelter as the Himalaya mountains. He will be forbearing like the earth and as tolerant as parents. What do you say, Yashoda Rani? You're the only parent around here. You got to be tolerant to be a parent. I think you got to be very tolerant. Gosh. All right. So there's an analogy here which is about the lion. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada makes the point that if someone is compared to a lion when they're very strong and chasing an enemy, but one should be a lamb at home and a lion in the chase. Yeah. Actually, you know what? Srila Prabhupada said that about lady devotees, temple resident. Like they should go out and distribute books. I mean, those who do should go out and distribute books, and when they're distributing books, Prabhupada said they should be like lions in the chase. They should really go for it. And yeah, because ladies can do very well at distributing books or selling anything. They can do really well. But when they come back into the temple in the evening, they should be very gentle and very gentle. A lamb at home and a lion in the chase. And the particular point is in the analogy, the lion never fails in the chase of an animal. Similarly, the head of the state should never fail in chasing an enemy. So that's an analogy. Yeah. Drawing comparison between two things in certain respects. Two things which otherwise you might think not so much related, but actually you can make a connection. So that's the analogy there for those of you who are doing Bhakti Vaibhava. Right. So anyway, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives examples of these particular points, which are mentioned in the verse that was about the lion. Then he goes on to the Himalaya mountains. They're famous for all richness. There are many caves, innumerable caves, numberless trees of good fruits to eat, good springs to drink water from, and profuse drugs and minerals to cure diseases. And anyone who's not doing well financially can go to the mountains. Yeah. And get everything required. We should tell our Shonaka Rishi that. It's one devotee's been approaching me for money. Gosh. So I can go to India anyway. But yeah, if a person's not doing well financially, they can go to the Himalayas. And everything will be there. Right. And what's next? Forbearing like the earth. Yes, well, you know, Mother Earth, at the beginning of the 10th canto, you remember, you must have heard this. Mother Earth approaches Lord Brahma, that there's so many of these demoniac kings, and they're marching their armies back and forth on me, and it hurts me. It hurts me. So can you do something to relieve this burden on me, on the earth? And so then they went and appealed to Shiradakshay Vishnu, who said, yes, we will appear, the Lord will appear. And it's also said actually that when Lord Krishna would herd the cows would go in front and he would be behind. So the cows are heavy. Every cow weighs, I don't know, half a ton, or I think more also, several hundred kilos. None of us are that heavy, are we? How many kilos are you? 59. And how many kilos are you? 55. Okay. Anyway. So, but the cows, there's several hundred kilos, something like that. And they have these sharp, hard hoofs. And so Mother Earth when Krishna was herding the cows, she'd feel some pain as all these cows and their hoofs are walking on her. But then Krishna would walk on her after the cows, and that would soothe her pain of Mother Earth. That's what they say, yes. So, but now they detonate bombs, even underground. They detonate bombs to test them. And the earth is the body of Bhumi Devi. And it's really not nice at all. Drilling out all the oil, these things, it's really not nice. But still the earth is forbearing and supplies everything, just like a mother excuses a child. And then Srila Prabhupada talks about parents, that children are famous for being mischievous, but parents always tolerate, not always, but good parents tolerate, they really tolerate a lot of nonsense from their children. Am I right? I think so. I mean, I have witnessed it. Gosh, I have witnessed it. I witnessed some today. We did a first grain ceremony, and there were 2 children there. Just one was doing first grains. But the other one who's 4, she has her own ideas about what she wants to do and not do. So parents have to be very tolerant. So an ideal king has all these good qualities, and Parikshit would have them. Right, okay, so now verse 23, and there's another analogy here. But anyway, let's just read verse 23 and see how we do. This child will be like his grandfather Yudhisthira or Brahma in equanimity of mind. He will be munificent like the Lord of the Kailash hill, Shiva, and he'll be the resort of everyone, like the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan, who is even the shelter of the Goddess of Fortune. The Goddess of Fortune is the shelter of so many, giving them money. So many. Yeah. But Lord Narayan, who's the husband of Lakshmi, gives shelter to her. Yes. All right. So, purport. So, grandfather. Okay. There's little discussion about who, because it says Pitamaha. Pitamaha means Pita Maha, great father or grandfather. Yeah. It could be taken to be Yudhisthira, who is the grandfather of Parikshit, or Lord Brahma, who is known, one of his names is Pitamaha. Yeah, the grandfather. And Prabhupada, it's interesting here, Prabhupada's giving this an interesting little perspective on the acharyas who have written commentaries, that they don't all just agree with each other. I mean, most of the time they do, but sometimes they don't. And here Prabhupada, it might be a little bit of a shock to some of us that some acharyas in a certain situation say it's like this, and others say in the same situation it's not like that, it's something else. This happens, definitely happens. So, who is it now? Sridhar Swami says it's referring to Lord Brahma, But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says it's Yudhisthira. Could be a little bit of a surprise and challenge the faith of some. But these acharyas are not just like machines. Yeah. So, but Prabhupada makes the point, and it's a very good point, and it's very true. They're both really good examples of grandfathers in the sense of having equanimity. Parents are very tolerant, and the retired parents, the grandparents, the grandfathers, they should really, they've learned tolerance. So now they're situated in equanimity, equal-mindedness. Yeah. And they both perform welfare work for all living entities. And then, anyway, yeah. And Prabhupada makes the point, whenever you're in a high position, any responsible executive agent at the top of administration, you got to tolerate Prabhupada says, tolerate different types of onslaughts from the very persons you're working for. Haribol. The temple president, the onslaughts of the temple president, or the head pujari. Got to tolerate them. Yeah. Well, you got to tolerate them, or they've got to tolerate you. I think it works both ways. Lord Brahma, Prabhupada makes the point, Lord Brahma was criticized by the gopis. That's the famous story in Nectar of Devotion. Radharani complaining that Lord Brahma has given us 2 eyes. That's good. He only gave us 1 mouth. So, but he's given us 2 eyes. At least we got 2 of them and not just 1. But the problem is the eyes blink. And when they blink, we can't see Krishna. So, the mouth doesn't blink unless you want it to. You got 2 ears. They don't blink. Why do the eyes blink? It's not right. Why did he make these 2 eyes that blink? It's terrible. So Radharani said he is a dunce. A dunce. Do they use the term dunce in South African schools? Dunce means the last one in the class. The one who comes last is the dunce. Most stupid. Yeah. So Radharani said that he's a dunce because he gave us these eyes which blink. And she prayed to take birth as a fish because fish don't blink. Because we blink to lubricate our eyes. If our eyes, what happens to people who use computers a lot, like all day, they just work on computers, then they're staring at the computers and they don't blink so much. And therefore they get conditions of the eyes, like dry eyes. I mean, that's the least of it. But they get different conditions of the eyes from not blinking sufficiently. Okay, right. Yeah, so Brahma was criticized by the gopis. And Yudhisthira had to cross over many challenges, difficulties created by enemies. The analogy is that how that responsible executive heads have to tolerate problems from the people they work for. And the example is Lord Brahma was chastised, criticized by the gopis because he made these defective eyes. So that's the analogy if you're doing the actual Bhakti Vaibhava. So Yudhisthira had to cross over many problems created by his enemies. That's really so both examples of both Yudhisthira and Brahma as having to tolerate things coming from people who are under them. Both examples are very fitting. Okay, so let's see now, where are we? Paragraph 2. Yeah, Shiva's very famous. He's Ashutosh. You know, we sometimes talk about Ashutosh. Asha meaning desire. Tosh means to satisfy. He easily satisfies. And we give the example that when you see pictures of Lord Shiva, you see him chanting on his mala, usually, or often at least. He's got his mala, his beads. And what's he chanting? He's chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But he has this duty as a demigod to fulfill worshippers' material desires. So some worshipper comes to him with a whole shopping list of things he wants, all sorts of things. And Lord Shiva, and that person interrupts his chanting, and he thinks, oh no, it's one of them again. Okay, give me your shopping list. And he just goes through it as quickly as he can. You want a new house? No problem. Take 2. You want a Mercedes-Benz? Take 2 Rolls-Royces. You want a 60-inch television? Take an 84-inch. Just like that. Just take, and go. So he can get back to his chanting. Not because he thinks, oh, it's great, I like giving these people these things. So he's also known, Prabhupada, he's also known as Bhutanath. The Lord Bhuta can just mean living entities, actually. And it can just mean common people. It can also mean ghosts and, that type of entity. Perhaps more often than not, it's used like that. But anyway, he's so Ashutosh, so ready to just close his eyes, take it, whatever you want, just take it. That sometimes he gives the wrong things to the wrong people. And the example is given of Ravana, that Ravana got benedictions from Lord Shiva, and he shouldn't have been given benedictions by Lord Shiva, because he used those benedictions to try to fight Lord Ram. So, sometimes he's irresponsible. Then there's the story of Vrikasura. I think it's also in the 9th, or maybe it's the 8th canto, 8th or 9th. Vrikasura, who wanted the benediction that whoever's head he would touch, the head would just break into pieces. So, it's a long story, but Lord Shiva gave him the benediction, and then he wanted to touch Lord Shiva's head. because he became attracted to Parvati, the wife of Shiva, and wanted to take her. But Krishna intervened, so Shiva had to run. And Krishna had to intervene and stop Vrikasura and told him, listen, you don't believe that this benediction will work, do you? I mean, look at this Shiva. He hangs out with ghosts and tikaloshas, hobgoblins. Yeah. Covers his body with the ashes of cremated human bodies, smokes ganja. How can you take such a person seriously? Well, I'll tell you what, generally, you really cannot take such a person seriously, and that's for sure. But it doesn't apply to Lord Shiva. So the Lord said, yeah, so you can't trust him. Therefore, what you must do is just touch your own head. Nothing happened. And you can be sure nothing will happen, because he's just Shiva. It's not to be taken seriously. And when nothing happens, then you know he's a cheater. Then you chase him and kill him. And Vrikasura said, yeah, great idea. Touched his head, and his head broke into pieces. Because Lord Shiva, he is for real. Right. So then the third paragraph, which is talking about the goddess of fortune. Yeah. About the Supreme Lord, who is the shelter of the goddess of fortune. And Prabhupada explains, people go to her for shelter. They're thinking that she'll give them so many things, but they don't know that her shelter is the Supreme Lord. Therefore, they should just worship the Supreme Lord. Yes. And then the goddess of fortune will just be with us all the time. Otherwise, she's flickering. Otherwise, she's flickering because she's very chaste to her husband. And any chaste woman will not associate with another man. Yeah. If the husband is there, then, depending, of course, what the sort of association is, but, I mean, in a religious context, it's possible. But without the husband, she's such a woman. She's not going to associate with just some man who's running after her. Give me some blessings, give me. So therefore she may give one time because it's her duty as a demigoddess, but she gives one time and goes, and therefore she's known as chanchala or flickering. So anyway, yeah, Prabhupada concludes the purport. Only Vishnu and the devotees of Vishnu can give protection to all, and because Maharaj Parikshit was himself protected by Vishnu, it was quite possible for him to give complete protection to all who wanted to live under his rule. Oh, yes, okay. Right. All right. So verse 24. This child will be almost as good as Lord Sri Krishna by following in his footsteps. His magnanimity, in magnanimity, he'll become as great as King Ranty Dev, who was really magnanimous, but really magnanimous. And in religion, he'll be like Maharaj Yayati is mentioned again. Maharaj Yayati. These are all special people. And the thing is, Parikshit is going to be like all these special people. It's just truly amazing. So, in the purport, Prabhupada explains, as we've heard on a number of occasions already, and we've just done, or in the middle, we've almost done 12 chapters. It just comes up again and again and again. And it's good because it drives it home in our heads that Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, his final instruction, is give up everything and surrender to him. Yeah. And then just, well, the way Prabhupada puts it here, then one should follow in the footsteps of the Lord alone. So stupid people, less intelligent, don't agree with this. But intelligent people, they do this and they're benefited from it. The foolish people don't know that association is the cause of acquiring qualities. Association with fire makes you hot materially. Therefore, association with the Lord makes you qualified like the Lord. Prabhupada would say that just as if you put an iron rod in fire, it makes the rod fiery, and the rod acts like fire if you touch it to something. If it's in the fire long enough, if you touch it to something, the thing, if it's flammable, it'll burst into flame. If it's not flammable, at least, like your arm is not really flammable, but you'll burn your arm because it's become fiery like the fire it was associating with. So similarly, if we associate with Krishna by particularly chanting his holy names and serving him, etc., then we become, Prabhupada would say, Krishnized. Yes, we develop the same nature, the same qualities as Krishna. And we can develop 78% of those qualities of Krishna by his association. So what does it mean? It's an interesting point Prabhupada raises. What does it mean to associate with the Lord? Well, for us, what it means is to follow the instructions of the Lord is to associate with the Lord. The Lord is not, then in italics, the Lord is not a material object whose presence one has to feel for such association. Rather, he's everywhere at all times. So, it's quite possible to get his association just by following his instructions. Because they're all his instructions, his names, forms, qualities, pastimes, they're all non-different from him. Yes. So, Maharaj Parikshit will be associated with the Lord. He was already within the womb, and until the very last day of his life he's going to be in the association of the Lord. So then, in paragraph 2, Srila Prabhupada talks about Ranty Dev. Yes. Who's an interesting person. He would never refuse someone food. So one day, I don't know if it says here who it was, but it was somebody. And this is described later in the Bhagavatam. It's also like 8th or 9th canto, something like that. Or what is it? Anyway, it's later in the Bhagavatam that some, I think, demigods, or maybe even the Supreme Lord, but some higher person or personalities or person came. Ranty Dev had already given away all the food. There was just a little left which he needed to eat to keep himself alive. And this great person came along and asked, please, I'm hungry, can you give me some food? As a test. And Ranty Dev just immediately said, yes, take it. And then that person gave his mercy. And I'd have to look up to see who that person was. Then in the next paragraph is the story of Yayati. We mentioned Yayati, son of Nahusha. And anyway, it's a long story. Actually, the story is described in the 9th canto. Yayati and his daughter, Devayani. Or what is it? No. He fell in love with Devayani. He was a Kshatriya. And he fell in love with Devayani, who's the daughter of Shukracharya, who's big Brahmin. And Devayani wanted to marry him, but at first I think Shukracharya refused, actually, because Yayati was just a Kshatriya. Anyway, it's a long story. And you can read about it there, or you can just wait till we get to the 9th canto. Yes, okay. And as we read, he was a good friend of Shibi. Verse 25. This child will be like Bali Maharaj in patience, a staunch devotee of Lord Krishna like Prahlad Maharaj, a performer of many Ashvamedha horse sacrifices, and a follower of the old and experienced men. So, again, biographical information is there. And you guessed it, a paragraph about Bali Maharaj, a paragraph about Prahlad Maharaj. They're both interesting characters. We will get to them sooner or later, don't worry. At least in Bhakti Vedanta. When you've all done Bhakti Vaibhava, then yes. Okay, so verse 26. This child will be the father of kings who will be like sages. For world peace and for the sake of religion, he will be the chastiser of the upstarts and the quarrelsome. All right. So, purport. So Prabhupada, first point he makes is the wisest person is a devotee. Yeah. So these kings who are going to be children, grandchildren, and so on like that, who are going to be like sages, they're all going to be devotees. They're all going to be great devotees. So, and, Prabhupada makes the point in the purport, and it's an interesting and important point, that kings have to be wise if they're actually going to rule, unlike our Queen Elizabeth. If you're from New Zealand, he's our queen, she's our queen. Or if you're British, particularly. But she's very good at PR, like dealing with people and keeping people happy, but ruling, well, she's never had to rule, so we never found out. But, I'd say it's very likely she wouldn't be able to handle the situation. Right. So anyway, kings have to be wise. Otherwise, if they're not wise, then otherwise, it's going to be problematic. It really is. To control all these people, including controlling the wise people. Yeah, that's the way Prabhupada puts it here. Otherwise, he can't control all types of wise men in the state. So anyway, then Prabhupada explains, in the family, Yudhisthira's family, they're all like that. They're all very wise. Rajarshi, Raja Rishi, kings who are rishis, wise people. So yeah, these kings, they're chastisers of the upstarts. And Prabhupada talks about how it's coming up, it won't be long, in a few chapters, how Maharaj Parikshit, he chastises Kali. He was going to kill Kali. Yeah. Kali, who was attempting to kill a cow. And there, Prabhupada makes a very important point. There are 4 symptoms of Kali Yuga, 4 symptoms of Kali. Wine, women, or the opposite sex, gambling, and slaughterhouses. These are the 4 symptoms of Kali. Yeah. So Maharaj Parikshit, he dealt with this fellow, but as we'll find out, Kali, he was going to kill him. He was just going to destroy him on the spot, just like that. Yeah. So, but then Kali took shelter of him and said, now I am one of your citizens. You must protect me. And I can only live in such places where there's wine and illicit sex and all that. Yes. So, to find out what happened, keep attending the classes, because in a few months or weeks or something, we'll get to that point. Yeah, so anyway, now it's Kali Yuga and it's a mess. And the rulers should learn from Maharaj Parikshit by subduing the nonsense people who promote the symptoms of Kali Yuga. It's really bad. So, all these things are going on. Wine, illicit sex, intoxication, illicit sex, gambling, meat eating, killing animals. So Prabhupada makes the point that how how can you expect peace? How can you expect peace and morality in a state where illicit sex is just freely advertised? Intoxication is available even to teenagers, and all these things. How can you expect peace and morality? You can't. But in fact, these things will make the deterioration worse. So Prabhupada says, if we want a blazing fire, means like of sinful life, then we have to supply dry wood. Blazing fire and moist wood don't go well together. Yeah, you won't get a nice fire. So peace and morality can only prosper and manifest when people follow the principles, when the rulers follow the principles of Maharaj Parikshit. Right. Okay, verse 27. Yeah, here now they're going to talk about his death. That after hearing about his death, which will be caused by the bite of a snake bird sent by a son of a Brahmin. I mean, these guys are pretty good, aren't they? They're pretty good. Yeah. He will get himself freed from all material attachment and surrender unto the personality of Godhead, taking shelter of him. Yeah, so in the purport, Prabhupada it's the same point, that fire and wet wood don't go well together. So material attachment and taking shelter of the Lord don't go well together. Yeah. In fact, material attachment means ignorance of the happiness which is there when you're sheltered by the Lord. So we can develop our relationship with the Lord through devotional service and get free from all material attachment, and then become qualified to go back to Godhead. Yeah. So Parikshit, his standard was just like that, fully engaged in devotional service without material attachment from in the womb when the Lord came to protect him. So therefore he was continuously under the Lord's shelter. And therefore this warning, being told that you're going to die in a week, it was a blessing. So he could prepare himself. Otherwise he would have just been carrying on doing his ruling kingly duties, and suddenly, bang, he would have been finished. But this was a blessing because he understood what was going to happen, and he prepared himself for going back to Godhead. And Prabhupada makes it's really an important point. Since he was always protected by the Lord, he could have avoided the effect of such a curse by the grace of the Lord. But he didn't take such undue advantage for nothing. Rather, he made the best use of a bad bargain. Or actually, anyway, yeah, that's a fact. But what he says is that this is a blessing, it's mercy from the Lord. And how could he say that it's mercy to be told that you're going to die in a week? Because then he just prepared himself. 7 days continuously, 7 nights, hearing from great devotee Shukadev Goswami. So he felt that this is the Lord's mercy because I'm too attached. If he hadn't brought this whole, people would say, catastrophe upon me, then I would have just been enjoying life in the material world. More or less he's saying like that. But because I'm so materially attached, the Lord is breaking me out of it. He's just smashing my material defenses and forcing me. I have no choice but to take shelter of the Lord. So, So he heard Srimad Bhagavatam from the right source, 24/7. What an example. It's an incredible example. Okay, let's see if we can do another verse. I think, devotees, we'll just finish here. And tomorrow we'll continue on with verse 28. Thank you for your association. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. But before you go, devotees, we've started a new policy. We are trying to be Krishna conscious. Actually, that's what we're trying to do. Because Prabhupada said, whenever anyone visits, they must get prasad. So you must get prasad. So please come and get some Mahaprasad. Haribol. Jai Krishna Das. Wow. Jai Krishna. Jai Ravindra Swarup Prabhu. Everyone come. Ladies. Haribol, you managed all the outfits. Sort of.